Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's in My Workbench, we're ready for phase 2 of a project that I did previously. This is the Bowie knife that I worked on, and I'll put just a couple clips in there just quick to show you the condition of the knife before I started and got to this point, just in case you need a refresher there, or maybe you didn't see it. I'll also put a link to the restoration of this blade at the end of the video, so if you want to click on that link you can go back and see the whole process. So today's task is to put handle scales on here, and I looked around to try to find the exact perfect handle material, and I'm not going to say this is exact perfect, but I think it will make a nice looking knife with what we've got going here. So I will say this is definitely not a how-to on the handle scales. There are much better ways to go about creating these scales, and I have limited equipment in the shop here. Really, to drill out for the pins here, you need a drill press. We're going to be attempting this with a handheld drill. So already I'm coming from behind around the curve there. But we're going to put these two scales on, and I've been thinking about this project really for a couple of weeks on how I'm going to create these handle scales. So we'll get on there and I'll get started and I'll show you. About dropped it, didn't I? I have a habit of sticking my foot out to catch things. That may have been not smart with this one. Anyway, we'll see if I can come up with a nice looking handle. I do have more handle scale material, so if I screw up this first one, then we'll just reload and go again. So let's get over here on the workbench and I'll talk you through this process. I appreciate you taking time to be within the shop today. So I give myself about almost a 70% chance of getting the scales to where they're right the first time. Part of the challenge that I've got is I have limited equipment to do this, not only for drilling the holes for the handle, but in finishing the handle itself. Really like a 1-inch or 2-inch belt sander with some free space where it's not against something hard would allow me to get in here close to this guard here. And as I said in the beginning, I've been thinking on this for a while, trying to come up with the best approach, and I actually changed the whole design, well, I shouldn't say design, but the approach just yesterday when I was looking at this project yet again. And I think I've got a way to have a pretty good chance of success here. So I guess we'll find out. When this handle was originally built, or when the knife was originally built and the handle was added to it, you can see on this stainless steel guard here where they sanded, and you can see where it's sanded on here. So they attached the handle, which is what I'd really like to do, and then worked the handle on here. And there's areas here where they got into the handle, and some are more rounded than others. So I guess that's kind of the nature of the beast on this type of a blade. But I don't have a way to get in there very well to do that. I could get in there with handheld sanding tools, but then I don't have a way of getting a nice polish on here. So what I'm going to do, and typically when you would do these scales, say this is the back side here, this one, a lot of times they'll stack these scales up like this, and with a drill press drill all the way through. And if you have a drill press set properly, then the pin should line up on here. The chance of me using a handheld drill and drilling through both scales like this and have it lined up, I think are like less than 5% getting that right. So what I'm going to do, for better or for worse, is I'm going to drill one of them this way, and then I'll take that one off, I'll flip it over, put the other scale on, and I'll drill the other one this way. And even that it's not great because the pins are slightly undersized of these holes, so I could be one way or the other of that, and when I go to assemble that, so if I can't get it lined up the way I want it and installed with success here, I may end up needing to put this project off until I'm in my summer workshop and I have a drill press there to work on this. But for personal reasons, I'm trying to get this done now. So what I need to do is figure out what orientation of these scales works best with this guard here. Because you can see that when they sanded that, they created a taper here as well. So it's thicker here at the bottom than at the top. Well, if I've got a square cut, and I don't even know if I have a square cut on these scales, well then that's not going to fit, you know, perfectly there either. I'm thinking I should have gone with gray epoxy because there's gray involved here, and if I see a little bit of gray, that would maybe look on purpose. But I can see right now, one of the challenges I'm going to have is that taper on that guard. So I think the first thing I'm going to need to do, and I hate doing it, but I think what I'm going to have to do is sand these to create a little bit of an angle to match up with this guard on here. I'm already not liking this. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have you sit through that whole process. I'm going to break away here. I'll get out some sandpaper and I'll sand the ends of these two scales and see if I can get them to where I think they match up pretty closely here on this handle guard. And I'll be right back. So I spent some time sanding the ends of these scales where they come up against the guard here. And I think I've got a pretty reasonable fit there. And the pin size is 3/32, I believe it is. And I've got the matching drill bit, it is the matching drill bit, chucked up in my handheld drill. So my goal is to drill these 3 pins here, and then I will flip it over and I'll do the same thing here. And in the end, I ended up pressing the scale up against here. You can see it's not a perfect fit. Part of that is because this guard is tipped a little bit out. I'm going to do the same thing on the other one, and I'm probably making it harder than I need to be, and that's kind of my theme of how I do things. But my goal is that once I get those drilled, and I can then further sand these ends to get them to match. Because not only is it curved this way, it's curved this way a little bit as well from where they fitted the previous handle on there. So it is a little bit of a challenge here, but we'll give it a try here, and if it doesn't work, like I said, I could put this off for another day. But I think I've got pretty good chance of having success here. So I'm trying to get this somehow held so it's somewhat plumb. That's actually pretty good right there. And it gives me room to drill through on the back side. I guess let's give it a try here. And if it doesn't look straight when I'm holding my drill, hopefully it's just because of the angle you're looking from. Yeah, I'll stick with that story. It's a short enough distance that if I don't have it somewhat straight, these pins, they're not gonna flex. They're a pretty tough scale pin there, or handle pin. I'm not sure exactly what you'd call it. Oh yeah, that's in the way, and that's in the way. All right, I'm gonna put this pin in, and then I'm gonna move the clamp. What's the chance of success now? It's going down steadily. Well, I've got that pin in there. This is an unorthodox approach, but shoot, it's almost my middle name. I'm going to hope those 2 pins will hold where I need to be. One more hole here. Okay, there are 3 holes, and I might ream these out just a little bit on this side, just the first 1/16 of an inch to help in aligning these pins. Oh goodness, that's crooked. Other one's pretty straight. Great. Yeah. Boy, if I can make that line up, that'll be a miracle. I'm putting a mark here to tell me which way that's leaning. No, it's not leaning that much, but it'll give me an idea on that. Left side, that's this side. What do you think? Can I repeat that lean on this end? I think my chances of success are dwindling here. All right, I'm gonna drill it. Slight lean here. What do you think? Yeah, I think it's a pretty slim chance, but we're this far. I guess we'll find out. Let me think about this. I don't know how tough this material is. I don't want to crack it. Let me drive these pins back. Come off there. Huh. Tell you what, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Okay, so that's part 1 of this process. Number 2, I have to get this shaped up in here. And there's only one way I can think to shape these scales, and that's to take them off, take the guard off, put them back on. That will keep them aligned, and I can do some of this original finishing up in this area here. And then I will get this kind of roughly done here, but up in here I need to be pretty much finished. I'll put the scales back on, glue them, clamp them in place, and then finish the rest of the handle. There's probably an easier way, but for the life of me, I can't think of what it is. I'm just excited that I was able to guess and get close enough on those pins. Hopefully I can get them back apart here now without destroying them. Yeah, That's on there pretty tight. There we go. Okay, off of there, this guard off. And if I end up bending these pins a little bit, I've got a few more. I think there was 10 in the package or something like that. All right, so just sitting here thinking, that fits pretty good. I can see a slight gap in there, but I can pull that down with a clamp when I get to that point. So I'm going to finish. I want to get the angle set here to make that a comfortable knife. So I need to get that set. And I think that's on there snug enough to where I can do my sanding. I'm going to wrap this with some tape. I'm going to grab my belt sander out and I'll clamp it up in the vise and we'll see if I can start to get this shaped a little bit here. So I'll see you at the vise here in a minute. I have the knife wrapped up to protect the polished surfaces and the edge from me, or me from the edges, however you'd want to word that. And I was lucky enough that my shop vac fits onto the belt sander well. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to set an angle across here. Well, I guess the first thing I need to do actually is I need to get this sanded pretty closely to the back of the knife across here. Because if I set an angle and then I cut this, then I will mess up that angle. So I'm going to work on this part, and it's not even across there. And then I will work on this part as well, doing the same thing. So that'll be my first goal, is to try to get these scales to where they're the size of the handle of the blade. So I'm not going to do any talking here. I'll put a dust mask on, get the shop vac going, and see what kind of a challenge I run into here. so I have my initial shaping to the shape of the blade handle on here. I did get into this up here a little bit. I was gonna leave this back. It's only from here to here unpolished, but I'll just polish that out so it's all the same. But I think I've got a pretty good profile of it there. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'll start it back up, and I wanna take off this hard edge as close to a 45-degree angle from one end to the other on each of these four corners here. And I'll wait to shape this end until I get this done. I can make it match later, and I can get to this part of it even once it's assembled. So I think we're headed in the right direction. Luck is with me so far. I appreciate that more than you know. Back to music. So here we are. I think I'm really pretty happy with what I've got using, 80 grit sandpaper here. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the sander out, probably chuck this up in the vise a little bit, and I'm going to work on my finish shape up here next to the finger guard. Once I get this established where I want it to be, hopefully I can make the rest of it follow suit. But if I can get this up in here shaped, then I'm going to take the scales off, put the guard on, get it back together here, and glue it together, cement it, epoxy, and then we'll come back over here. The pins will be in. I'll grind off the pins even. Do a little bit of sanding here, but I think I need to then go to hand sanding so I don't go past where I want to be. My shape is almost exactly where I want it now, so I got to be cautious at this point. All right, so I'm going to take it out and we'll get a little hand sanding here. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll come back when I have this hand sanded. I'm just going to use some sandpaper up in here and probably a strip of it and kind of work across it here. So I'm looking at this hourglass shape here and seeing, I think I've got them. This one might be a little wider, but I think I've got them pretty well matched. This handle down in here will be the same diameter as this, maybe a little skinnier in thickness. It's not a bad thickness, but I anticipate when I grind these pins off, once I have it assembled, that I'll get into this some. So I'll need to take it down some, which will be fine. And I really like these layers. I think they look pretty cool. So I'll meet you over on the workbench. It's time to glue this on. Yeah, I think we're there. Chop, chop. All right, I'm just looking at this to see if there's anything else I need to accomplish before I take the scales off and epoxy them on there. And I can't think of what it is. I'm sure I'll think of it later. Yeah. I'd like to know if that pin lines up as well as these do, but I hate to then have to take it off of there. I'm going to trust that I'm good there. That may not be good, but we'll see. And I probably should have left this end undone so I had something to get a pry against to get this scale off of there. want to damage the scale on the inside here and then have a gap. I wonder if I drive the pin, if it'll push that away. I'm going to try that. Well, it won't if I'm holding it there, will it? Aha! I'm prying down in here because that's where the guard will hide whatever's going on there. I don't want to put too much pressure down here though. Okay. I think, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm going to clean these with denatured alcohol. Yeah. It's we'll have to see how that comes out. It can be pretty close to the edge here. I wonder if I should take those down a little further. Boy, it's easier to do it now than later. What do you think? Yeah, shoot. Yeah, I'm gonna, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna take and sand this down through this black layer, this gray layer, and down to the next black layer. And I think that will give me what I need. It's probably, I don't know, 32nd of an inch on each side if I do that. So I'll be right back. So we are back. I did a little more sanding. I think I kept things aligned right. Tried not to take any off of here because that would be into the metal there. And I went ahead and sanded finer here. I'm not sure how much of a polish I'll get on this handle material. So, let me, I need to not lose track of which side is which. I think it'll become obvious, but it may be after I've installed them. So this is the right side. And the left side. I'm going to take, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm going to clean this all with some denatured alcohol. I know from experience when you clean like copper to do sweating, a lot of people will sand it and then they'll run their hand across it to wipe the dust off, and you just put oil there from your hands. So I'll hold on here with this rag to keep that from being an issue. I'm curious. Yeah, that's the right. And don't touch the inner part. The left. looking to see how I'm lined up in the hole. If you remember, I had it pinned together with the guard on there. I'm going with it. Let's mix up some epoxy, and we'll see what we can do here. Trying to make sure I have everything I need. I didn't make those holes any bigger. It seemed like it lined up okay, so hopefully I have that same luck when I get it all gooped up here with epoxy. I don't want to have to clean all that off. Hopefully it doesn't react with this. And unfortunately, 5-minute epoxy was the only epoxy I could find. I would really have liked to had, shoot, I would take a 60-minute epoxy. I'm not in any hurry. Are you in a hurry? Mix plenty. No turning back. Well, there's always turning back, but I guess we're on here. I don't know, but I don't think I need to back epoxy these. There should be plenty of epoxy there, and maybe squeezing out for the next week. Right. This is going to be a mess. You know, maybe I should start up here at the front. Somebody out there recognizes this hammer. Why did I take off my glove? Well, I thought I was going to pick up my wooden handle on ball peen, and I didn't want to get epoxy on it. It's there. I got to get this cleaned up. I have such a mess here. I need to get this cleaned at least where the, well, you know what? I'm going to be sanding all of that. Let me get the clamps on there. I figure I better get some of this off so I don't glue the clamp or epoxy the clamp to the handle. See a little epoxy squeezing out. To me, that's a good sign. I'm going to set this over out of the way. I see epoxy oozed out a little bit on most of the area here. So I feel good about the epoxy fill. Let me set this over here and I got to clean up my tools. All right, so that didn't go as smooth as I wanted it on the glue up. Maybe I should have pre-planned that a little bit better. I'm going to finish cleaning up here. Try to return my workbench to its former glory. And I'll come back when we're ready to take the clamps off and work some on what I've got there. Hopefully it's good. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with where it's at. So I'm going to finish cleaning up here, and we'll be back, not today. I'll come back tomorrow once it's had a chance to set up and dry really good. Well, epoxy doesn't dry. It cures. It's a chemical process. So I'll let that finish its chemical process and become completely hard, and then we'll be back. Appreciate you being here today. All right, after I installed the handle, I went ahead and cleaned the handle up, and I think we're in pretty good shape. I need to wrap the blade portion here with some tape to protect me, and then I want to do some sanding on here. The one thing I don't like about this handle material is the face of it. If it's left flat, then it's somewhat boring, and I thought it would be good to have a little bit of finger grip. You can see I've started to form it on that side, and I worked a little bit here on the left hand side, so I think that will add a little interest to the overall look of the handle. So I need to create a couple of sand areas here like this, contoured a little bit to give it a little bit more look. All right, so what I'll do next is I'm going to put a little bit of tape on here to protect myself. Like I said before, it is not sharpened, but it is sharp. So I'll get some tape on here. We'll get it in the vise, and we'll start doing some of this sanding to create that hourglass look in this design and give a little bit of a finger hold area here. The individual it's for is left-handed, so that would be how he holds it. So I think that's a good location, and I'll just do a couple more in here. Like I said before, if nothing else, it's to give it a little more interest to that layering of the handle material. That's how I'm going to create that shape in there. I'm just judging the width of that band to the other side here. All right, let's see. Just a little pause here in creating these elements in the handle here. These two are a little bit, this one's quite a bit wider, it's a little bit wider than there. But I did a little bit of finish sanding, so I probably need to take a little bit more on each of those. A lot more on this one. All right. I think the definition is where I'm looking for. I'm going to use now some sandpaper, a much finer grit, and I'm going to sand along these surfaces here just to get rid of these scratches that come across here. I've noticed in this material it does show. So I'll just take some sandpaper and work this way. I'm going to come back after I have finished hand sanding this way. So I've worked my way up to 1500 grit, wet and dry sandpaper here. And I think to me it's more of a polishing at this level of grit. But I think the handle's coming out pretty nice. Starting to get a little bit of a sheen to it. With the 1500, I just started with that. So I'll give it 15 or 20 minutes of sanding and burnishing with that. And then I'll switch to the 2000. And then earlier, I was sanding along and I was watching a show on TV. And I realized I had the sandpaper turned over backwards and it was getting a pretty good polish on it. So I'll probably go after it with some denim or craft paper or something that's got a little bit of a grit feeling to it to get that last polish. So obviously if there's any scratches or anything in there, this isn't going to really remove it other than scratches from the previous sandpaper of 1000. You can see it's starting to get a nice luster to it. And you know what? I think I'll probably just take it to 2000 and consider the sheen. If I get this too shiny, I think maybe it's a little misplaced with the knife itself. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this sanding, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little bit of a wrap up of where we're at with the knife thus far. The last phase will be to build a sheath for this, and I keep thinking on the sheath. Maybe maybe you've got an idea on what type of a sheath you think would look best. Maybe put that in the comments. Give me a little bit of feedback. I'm thinking about black, and I'm thinking I'll do some tooling on that black. But I could do a natural veg tan tooled and use a black antique on there. And maybe that would go better with this two-tone look here. So there you go. I think, well, I like how it looks. The owner of the knife likes how it looks. I've got the handle finished. I might do a little bit of burnishing further on here, maybe increasing the luster a little bit. I think it's actually pretty good now. I think the shinier you get it, maybe the more slippery it is. But I think it came out nice. I know there are some that, you know, why didn't you use wood? And the more I thought about how I needed to complete this process without a drill press and a few other things, I was really worried about cracking the wood scale. And so I knew that this material was really pretty tough, and it really stood up well to the work that I did. The knife, and I kept saying, you know, the person it's for, but this belongs to one of my brothers. My father bought this, more than 10 years before I was born. I believe it was purchased somewhere around 51 or 52. And he gave it to me to work on. And I really think it's really a cool knife. I like how it's turning out. If you remember, the handle was originally wrapped in black electrical tape. That's one reason why I went with black, was sticking with, you know, kind of how I found the knife when I first started working on it. So I'm going to have a sheath building video. That's probably going to be down the road a bit, because I want to really think about the color of it. I'm partial to natural colored sheaths, but I think black would go the best with this. And I don't know if you saw the video where I created a turquoise antique to highlight the tooling. I'm not going to use turquoise, but I'm thinking about making a light gray antique and using that to highlight the tooling on the black sheath. I like the look of a black sheath, but I'm not sure that the tooling really shows as well as a natural color does, because you get that depth in the definition. But using a color on the antiquing, I think, can help achieve that same look. So I'm going to wrap up there. I do appreciate you taking time to be with me in the shop today. Please like, share, and subscribe. But I hope you have a great day. Thanks.